What's going on, you guys? So today I wanted to do a video that's actually been requested numerous times, covering some of the weird images that the Mars rover has captured from what many believe to be a deserted planet. Now, in countless photos taken by the rover, you can actually see creatures that bear pretty striking resemblance to animals that we have on Earth. But many of these creatures actually have a few distinct differences. Now, if you take a look at this first photo, you can see what appears to be some sort of a spiny, alien-looking snake, and it looks like it's traversing a rock or dirt formation. Now, these photos aren't necessarily of the highest quality, but it's easy to make out that this object does heavily resemble a snake. Now, in this next photo, which again is pretty blurry, you can see a group of strange objects, almost resembling maybe a scorpion or some sort of strange bug creature. They're huddled around a much smaller object that you can just barely make out. Now, what makes this photo particularly quite interesting is the fact that all three of the objects are nearly identical. You know, it's one thing to see a random object that kind of slightly resembles a crab or something, but it's completely different to see a group of these objects that all look identical and all resemble a well-known creature that we have on Earth. Now, just to quickly pass through a couple more photos, here's a photo of what appears to be a woman making some sort of a hand gesture. And here's a photo of what appears to be a crouching man. And finally, here's that classic UFO photo that we've all seen, and I actually did a video on this one a while back. Now, before we get to the ultimate purpose of this video, I just want to make it painfully clear that there is definitely a possibility of life on Mars. In fact, not only is it possible, but it's actually quite probable. And even to take that one step further, I would even go as far as saying that it's highly likely that there is some form of life on Mars. However, I can't personally agree with the claims that the photos I've just shown you show any type of living creature, at least not in these specific photos. It's my personal belief that our brains are just seeing these strange rock or dirt formations and telling our minds that they're living creatures. It's actually a scientific term known as pareidolia. Though rather than bore you with my honestly unknowledgeable approach to the subject, I teamed up with Brian from the YouTube channel Utility, and he's going to explain exactly what this pareidolia phenomenon is.
Have you ever seen a face in a car? Or how about a religious figure in a piece of food? Pareidolia is the common phenomenon that seems to connect the Rorschach and the Ganzfeld effect. Most people use it to describe seeing faces and things that aren't faces, but the word means faulty form, meaning a misinterpretation of form. As for seeing faces, however, it's been suggested that our brains are evolutionarily primed to find human faces, notably to find emotion in human faces. This is so we can distinguish whether someone means us harm or not. Sometimes this process produces a false positive, suggesting that there is a face when there isn't. This happens with computers too. There have been computer programs that are trained to look for specific images and have incorrectly found another image that mistakenly look like the image the programs were designed to look for. As I said earlier, pareidolia doesn't just work on the visual system. One interpretation of electric voice phenomena, or EVPs, was that of it being auditory pareidolia. The same explanation was given when hearing phrases in audio played backwards, such as in backmasking. So why does this happen? The strongest argument I've found on how and why we find patterns where there aren't any comes from the Gestalt and cognitive schools of psychology. There are some images that our brain automatically fixes. For example, several unclosed images reveal closed shapes. And then you also have these studies that looked at how we perceive audio information that has been replaced with a cough or other interrupting stimulus, and noted that most people still hear the full word despite part of it not actually being there. This happens because our brain doesn't do well with uncertainty and ambiguity. Both are pretty bad for our survival, so our brain attempts to fill in the gaps to the best of its ability. It fills this information out subconsciously and with little effort. It does so well protecting us from uncertainty that we actually have a list of cognitive biases that are due to being certain when we shouldn't be.
So, keeping all of this in mind, what do you guys think? Do you believe that any of these photos in particular genuinely show living creatures on Mars? Let me know